What up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horrors suggestion. Did you pass your wisdom save? Actually grab a d20 and roll it, or like Google Online. Did you pass it? The DC was, let's say, 15. If you passed it, then you don't have to do anything, you're fine. But if you failed it, you have to write, Morrow, I love you, or something like that. Or write some sort of a silly confession in the comment section below related to me. Maybe you love my beautiful horns, or my tail gets you feeling like chasing tail. I don't know. Anyway, write something silly. We're gonna get to the first RPG horror story for today. No, you can't use mental illness to justify having 2 character sheets. Short story about a player who used to play at my wife's table in our home games. We kicked this player out of our group as a couple months ago for behavior that we thought was just misunderstanding of 5e's mechanics. Small math mistakes on his character sheet whenever we checked it, giving himself higher level abilities that he should because he thought multiclassing gets you the benefits of both classes, right? Etc. That eventually scaled up to blatant full-on cheating, fudging gold amounts, giving himself equipment that he did not purchase, and attempting to lie to other party members after failed the save on Zone of Truth. He was never at the same table as me, so aside from checking his sheet for my wife, I never really experienced his little cheats and advantages. What stood out to me most about this player wasn't what he did at the table, but when I tried to help him make a character for a different campaign. For context, my wife runs small series of one-shots every so often to try out different systems, different group dynamics, and let her creativity flow by working on something other than her massive 6-year-old multi-party campaign. This particular year, she wanted to try her hand at running Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because the flavor of this mini-campaign was going to be very Far Cry-esque, and she wanted to have guns available. Because I love building character sheets and optimizing, my wife often relies on me to help build and check over other players' character sheets. So there was one day after a game that I approached this player and asked him, "Hey, do you have an idea for your Far Cry character yet? If you want, I can start researching ideas on how to build them." So this player says, "Is there a way to have a split personality in Pathfinder 2e? I think I know what he's gonna say next. I want to have 2 character sheets instead of 1, and my character can switch between 2 personalities, which changes their character sheets." Am I right? I haven't read this far, so I don't know. I want my character to have a split personality, like where one of them has a certain set of abilities, and the other has a different set. Called it. I thought that's a little insensitive to people with actual dissociative identity disorder, DID, but the point the Moon Knight TV show had just come out, and that sort of character idea was sort of in vogue. At the same time, though this was his first time playing Pathfinder 2e, I wanted to steer him towards something easy to play, rather than overcomplicating with a complicated split personality mechanic that would have to essentially invent whole cloth. So I thought about it and told him, the best way to build that sort of character would be a rogue. Rogues have a massive list of skills at first level and also pretty good in combat, so you can pick out what skills and feats are associated with what personality and play it out that way. And he responds with, "No, like, I want the 2 personalities to have like different stats. Like one is a pacifist that has a really high intelligence and charisma and has a bunch of non-combat skills and abilities, and the other is a psychopath that's geared all towards combat." Whoa, just straight up admitting I would have played 2 characters at the same time. Best of both worlds. One who's great at combat, one who's great at non-combat, so I can have my cake and eat it too. I could be a great charismatic individual who's super happy-go-lucky, but also be a murder hobo. I can switch on a whim at any time I want. If you want a roleplay character having different personalities or multi-personalities and stuff, that's whatever, that's fine. I mean, Mary has a sorcerer, a wild magic sorcerer, as a Vulpin from the Humblefolk campaign. Basically, there are 2 wolves inside her character. One that's more calm and nonchalant, the other one is a bit of eccentric, crazy man. But it's still the same character sheet, just the way she roleplays the character and the token changes because of a macro and stuff. But otherwise, there's not a massive change with the character overall. It does the thing. It does the thing out of the box and does it well, and that's really it. This, however, I would say classifies as cheating. And I want to talk about my own experience with having somebody playing 2 characters at the same time, but I'll leave it for the end of the story. That gave me pause, because what he essentially told me is that he wanted to play 2 separate characters and swap between them as he saw fit, depending on which would be the stronger for that situation. I said, I can't sign off on that. Okaying that would be giving you 2 player characters while everyone else only has 1. You can sort of work your stats to where you can represent both on one character sheet, but you can't have 2 sets of abilities to pick from just because your character has DID. He seemed less interested in the character after I said that. The game ended up getting delayed the release of Starfinder 2e, so ultimately it never mattered. But looking back on it, it put into context why he eventually ended up getting kicked from our group. At every turn, he seemed to be hyper concerned about his character having weaknesses, like lower armor class or not doing as much damage as characters specialized to do damage. It seemed like he wanted his character to be able to do a little bit of everything, but became insecure when someone who specialized in any given particular thing outclassed him. Like the tank with her armor class, or the cleric with his spellcasting. We found out later from another friend he played with that he had a history of blatantly cheating in his home game, with the same warning signs and symptoms that were increasingly noticed in our games with him. It's not even optimizing or munchkinning that I could empathize with. We just wanted to be better than other players in the party and going through illegal methods to do it. That is crazy. I'm glad you guys finally got this person out and can't believe that. I mean, actually no, I can't believe. If they do it in one game, they probably did in the previous game, there has to be some sort of like a point zero, an origin point where they start doing the cheatsy doodle kind of stuff and then they move on to do it in other games too. I have more personal experience, not necessarily playing with a player character, but having somebody in a previous campaign, I talked about it, like the problem campaign with Lord DM that Micah, Mary, and I, we basically dipped out of Dodge, you know, when things got really bad and terrible. There was a particular group of players there that was like the special group. They had their own group of people there, and one of the characters played both a wizard with, I forgot the subclass, but apparently he also had wild magic as a thing. But also he played a literal angel. Not an ASMR, mind you, but a literal angel paladin of conquest, I think. Glory, I forgot the subclass. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But anyway, so here he is at like what, upwards of level 13, playing both a wizard with whatever subclass he's playing with, and including wild magic on top of his other stuff that he's done. I don't remember if he was a sorcerer or not. Really don't remember. I don't think he was, but maybe he was. I don't know. But also playing as a paladin, as a literal angel. I wouldn't be even surprised if he had special features customized just to make him an overpowered angel for some reason. And that apparently was allowed completely because the character apparently was a resurrection of an angel, and now he was in his ASMR humanish form. I don't remember what he was, and suddenly he reawakened again as an angel. So that justified him having 2 character sheets to switch off on a whim, some sort of purpose, I don't remember, but that was, to me, in my opinion, the most unfair BS thing I've ever seen. And for whatever reason, only this one player got to play 2 characters at the same time. Nobody else was allowed to. They had no character. They had obviously their own kind of over-embellishing, overpowered storylines and given them special powers and special bells and whistles and magical items and unique abilities that only unique to them for whatever reason. But he was the only one that was able to play 2 characters at the same time. I have no idea why this was allowed. I have no idea whether this was okay, but for whatever reason, the special group got preferential treatment as main characters of the story of some kind. And ever since then, I've decided for myself that in my games, don't allow anybody at all, DM, player, whoever, don't let anybody play 2 characters at the same time. It's fine to have alt characters, right? If you have different alts, like I have a cleric, but also have a ranger, and now I have a blood hunter. I have a bunch of characters that kind of sit in a shelf that I just never touch whatsoever because I come up with ideas. I'm like, oh, I want to make the concept and see what it looks like on a character sheet, but I don't actually play them. I'm fine with my player characters having alts and stuff, playing alternate characters to try different class, different subclass, different character entirely. Like somebody wanted to play as a cleric artificer, but then playing as a barbarian, or somebody playing as a full-on artificer, but then wanted to mix and match and play cleric monk just for funsies. I don't mind people having alts as long as they don't get to play 2 characters at the same time, because as soon as you allow somebody to play 2 characters at the same time, man, so much busted stuff can happen. You can build a character literally just can take on the whole world and the kitchen sink. Speaking of the kitchen sink, I'm gonna let that sink in while I get to the next story for today. This story specifically, I'm glad you guys kicked the cheating player out, because allowing somebody to play 2 characters for an excuse of, hey, mental illness, so I should be able to play 2 characters, I'm glad you guys nipped it in the bud. It's actually honestly a good thing. But anyway, while I let the story sink in, I'm gonna get to the next story for today. The DM's so bad, he made me start DMing. Okay, so a few years ago, I made a highlight post of some really creepy behaviors I ran across in TTRPG, and this DM is one of the guys in that compilation. But recently, I talked to some friends about the worst campaign we've ever played here, and to that I think this DM deserves a post of his own, so let's call him Dan. I apologize in advance for any inaccuracies in my module core, campaign detail, or 5e terminology since it's been a few years since I played 5e, and that module in particular. Anyway, found Dan on Roll20, where I was looking for a paid game. He gave a good pitch, running a Greek mythology-inspired module he boasted he was somewhat related to the creation of, and that meant, according to him, He was both familiar enough with the module to run it well, and had enough grasp of it to modify it to work for us players. It was a pretty good deal, all in all, on paper. When I showed up to the session 0, it was basically me, a guy we'll name Centaur, don't remember his class, and a third guy. Session 0 was fine, but third guy just dropped out and we couldn't start the campaign. This bummed me out, so I went and decided to get some of my friends from the other groups. I ended up getting Barbarian, who was DMing in other games, and I got hyped on getting him to be a player, and a Rogue, who was a good friend who played with me into games already. Then I brought it up with a third friend, we'll call her Crush. Crush said she was in one of Dan's other games, and he was okay as far as DMs go, but the module was cool and time slots worked for me and my friends, so I was still pretty excited. When she heard me, Barbarian and Rogue were playing in that group, she opted to switch over to play with us, which I thought was pretty awesome. We have a quick second session 0 to go over the rules, and decided to go for rolling stats. We roll and the stats are fine. My own stats end up being pretty good for anything MAD at 16 and 2 15s, so I decided to go with a Radiant Soul Monk, who's a demigod. It's an official path in the module, not some OP homebrew crap. Son of the god of war, and I thought it was cool for his avatar to be a manifestation of his divinity. Barbarian, Rogue, and Centaur go for, well, you see what I named them. Crush goes with a warlock, who's also a demigod, though she didn't take that path. I think of her just a backstory element, but I might be wrong. She was meant to be a daughter of the Storm Titan that I think was the BBG of the module. We started getting excited about writing our backstories, and Dan informs us that, oh yeah, I guess you can write backstories if you want, but I probably won't read them. Just give me short character concepts. Okay then, I guess, no backstories. So anyway, I got a lizardfolk monk who is a demigod with a folk hero background. This becomes important later. I'm guessing maybe the DM is pre-writing backstories, but that's kinda lame, dude. If you're just rewriting backstories and stuff ahead of time so players don't have to write their own, that's kinda lame. Writing a backstory is like the most important piece of the puzzle to create a character that you make. First, you select all the selections, the class, the race, subclass, it depends on which level you start at, and then write the backstory, the most important key piece. If you need to modify the backstory in some way, you need to figure out, like, you gotta be able to, like, write whatever you want, but your character has to end up in this place, that's fine, that's cool, that's a-okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But to basically be like, oh yeah, if you write the backstory, I want to read it, that sounds weird to me. Isn't backstories kind of important? But maybe this DM is too genius for me. Maybe they know exactly what's going on, and I'm just a fool on the internet. Between sessions, we're joined by Druid. Druid is one of the worst players I've ever had the pleasure of playing with. So much so that I think he deserves his own post. But regardless, what you need to know for this, he was a creep and a cheater. He rolls his stats and gets like 3 17s and 18s. This seems weird. I go to the VTT and would you look at that? The macro he rolled wasn't to roll 46 and drop the lowest, it was to roll 46, re-roll the lowest, then drop the lowest, also cheating. Blatantly. I inform him and he goes, oopsie, I made a small mistake, teehee, all coy. And I don't know this guy at this point, and Crush informed me that he was pretty harmless. He played in one of her games, so I'll roll with it. DM doesn't give a crap, just goes, oh, suppose you just re-roll. He does, his stats are now more reasonable, but this level of not checking rolls of giving a crap is just what Dan was about. So the module starts, and it's okay-ish. We do notice how most NPCs seems to want to talk to exactly one of us. Guess who? Yep, Crush. She gets to interact with NPCs almost exclusively. Still, she was our only charisma-based character, so we just assumed that had to do with her being party face. Okay, whatever. Then the inciting incident happens. I think the object involved was an egg or a monster we killed or something. 2 players wanted it, me and Crush. Now me and Crush are both pretty loud and opinionated. We clash pretty regularly. It often led to some great roleplay, and often resolved in great in-character drama. But Dan, admittedly, was not aware of our usual dynamic. Still, the way he chose to resolve it was, if she declares she wants it, and I say I want it too, I go, can we roll for it, like athletics as we reach for it, or... Dan pipes up, no rolls. I don't love PvP at the table. She gets it. What do you mean she gets it? We both want the item. Rolling for it is fair. This isn't PvP. No, she said she wants it first, she gets it. I'm annoyed, but fine. That's the DM ruling. The DM is God. Fine. I'll sulk a little, but accept the ruling. both players want to get it, it's fine to roll for it. I think it's perfectly fair. I mean, unless the DM is a simp. Yeah, DM could be potential a simp. Maybe. I mean, maybe that's why you called your friend crush. Maybe the DM has a crush on the crush, potentially. Maybe I'm just misreading it, or maybe just so obvious that I should be very much aware of it. I don't know, but let's continue. The thing is, this single instance of me disagreeing with crush basically made the entire world make a complete 180 against my character. No NPC would treat him as anything but a complete piece of trash. This is a demigod and a folk hero, I remind you. Still, every NPC I tried talking to treated my character like the dumbest, worst, most annoying person ever. When we meet my character's uncle, the god of the forge, he basically blows him off. Then we meet my character's dad. My character's dad, the single most significant NPC in his path. And he sends him on a mission to rescue the other kid. That's just the module though. But when my character tries to basically have an interaction with this NPC, what the NPC says is, I don't care at all, so just go and rescue the child I actually do care about. And that's that. Okay then. Wow, that sounds really vindictive. Damn. Either DM has big daddy issues and they're just projecting here, or you trying to contest an item apparently is just rubbed them the wrong way of some kind. I have no idea. Imagine this, saying, hey, I too want a magic item. DM says no, gives it to the other player, and now you're on no crap list. Imagine. The rescue mission ends up with us facing another of my character's half brothers who captured the kid. But he also doesn't give a crap about my character and shows no interest in displaying animosity or forming a rivalry. Nothing. On the way, however, we do run across two harpy monsters who threatened to eat my character, but the way it was phrased sounded a little flirty, so embrace the gag and yes and into it. So my character goes along with it. So there's now a throwaway gag in the game about my character sneaking off with the harpies for a bit. Or I thought it was a throwaway gag. It comes up later. Meanwhile, we returned that kid, and my character's dad, whose kid was just rescued, still doesn't give a crap about him and refuses to engage in any meaningful roleplay. Okay then. Meanwhile, as the plot needs to progress, we get divine guidance. Not from the character's dad though. Oh no. Instead, Crush's character gets a prophetic dream where her dad, the Storm Titan, BBG himself, explains to her how important she is and how she wants to destroy the world, and she better not stop him. So she gets to roleplay, so that's nice. All other NPCs, by the way, keep commenting on how beautiful she is, how wonderful she is, how smart she is, etc. I think even our enemies keep admiring her. Ooh. Projecting from the DM the attraction to a player. In one sense, if your character is supposed to be the fairest maiden of them all, or the fairest dude of them all, I don't know. If the character is supposed to be pretty, I guess it makes sense that they'd be complimented of like really famous nobility and stuff, and people really trying to want to schmooze up to them. But in this situation, I feel like it's just DM projecting their crush onto crush. Maybe it's not as on the nose as I thought it was going to be. I think it's very direct actually in this situation. I'm not a genius, I'm just following the breadcrumbs, and the breadcrumbs are really thick. Side story about Druid. As Crush walked up to her nightmare screaming and we all rushed in to make sure she's safe, she tells us about it. We worry but leave. Druid, who's very normal about all this, asks her if she should spend the night with her to protect her. Reminder, he's playing a scholarly druid. She's playing a badass soldier, warlock, demigod. He is promptly told no. So he does the very understandable thing of shifting into a raccoon and sleeping by her window. Cool. Next session, Crush has to go to the dentist or something, so she's supposed to miss session. We've had players miss sessions before, you know that happened when that happened. We had normal session, but obviously this is Crush missing, so we can't have plot. No, instead we get to travel through the forest and randomly get attacked by mindless bandits who have no reason to be there in lore, no shot against us, and refuse to engage in banter and have personalities. No, we're just wasting time, awaiting Crush's triumphant return from the dentist. Surprisingly, she logs in mid-session. Dan is very normal about it, as he yells, "Oh, thank frick," into the mic. We can move the plot along now. So, you know, not just me suspecting he didn't want to move the plot along without Crush, but this is how actually confirmed. We go to the forest hideout of some nymph or whatever. Think we negotiate with her, or there's a boss fight? I don't remember. I don't think she dies though, but I think they were eating people or something. When we exit her hideout with some lost kids and we all beaten up and in no state of fight, we're told we can leave. we shall have to sacrifice something great. I can read how much OP just doesn't give a crap anymore about this whole thing, because they're just like, was it a fight? Did she live? Did she survive? I don't care anymore. Doesn't matter at the end of the day. You know they're fed up. You know they're completely fed up with this whole nonsense. Like, obviously I would be too. If my DM focused specifically on one singular character in the entire story and not care about anybody else whatsoever, or made even any kind of effort to make anybody feel involved, yeah, I'd be miffed too. You know, there's also a possibility that maybe this is written from the OP's perspective. Maybe they're embellishing how much is going on. Maybe the character was indeed in some sort of roleplay with the character. I mean, there always could be a possibility. Listen, read a lot of stories that can be a little bit more questionable on their authenticity, I guess you could say. So there could always be like some things being left out from the story to paint the DM as really the bad guy. Obviously, I don't want to say the story is just a bunch of lies, and porky pies and everything, but there could always be a possibility that maybe that's written from a jaded player that wanted to be the main character but didn't get to be the main character, and they're describing how their other characters, how their other friends were basically treated almost as main character-esque, but maybe it's over embellished. I don't know. There's always a possibility that a bunch of stuff could be over embellished. It's a Reddit, for crying out loud. Like, lies can happen. People lie on the internet. But let's assume everything here is authentic so we can continue with the story. Now, the thing that broke me out of character before session, I told Dan I wasn't really feeling my subclass and asked if I could find opportunity to change it to the module's monk subclass, which is just a warrior monk using a shield. It's pretty cool. I realized this is my moment, and I have my character say he's willing to sacrifice his divinity for the safe passage of the party. I describe his avatar leaving him, and I think this can be a pretty cool heroic moment. And for exactly 8 seconds it is! Then 2 harpies descend from the canopy, deposit 2 babies into my character's arms, and fly off. Oh, I guess why let me have a cool character moment and do that in 5 minutes. This is much better. Good job, Dan. Either Dan is just poking fun at you, or maybe they thought this was a perfect moment to do some sort of a hilarity with the harpies. I don't know, honestly. I have no idea. Maybe Dan does like you, or maybe Dan doesn't like you. I don't know. I really can't tell. They went with the whole like harpy banging, and now you have kids. Also, question, do harpies lay eggs, or do they birth like regular people do? I have no idea. Can somebody tell me in the comments below? I'm gonna continue then. So we're now stuck with my character's 2 monster babies. Obviously, we're not gonna bring them along on a very dangerous adventure, so we decided to drop them off in my character's hometown. The hometown he is a folk hero of, I remind you. Every single NPC we interact with in that town sees my character and immediately goes, "Oh my god, it's that idiot again. Crap, I hope he was gone for good." It was amazing. Not a single NPC remembered my character fondly. Basically, exactly 2 characters in the entire world display any positive emotion towards my PC. The harpies. That's it. Even his babies didn't like him. Eventually, I'll find 2 people willing to babysit and session ends. I realize I'm not going to be paying money every week to be treated like crap, and I leave. Dan doesn't care. Okay. They kept the game going without me, and replaced my character with Ranger, a friend of Centaur. I was still playing 2 weekly sessions with most of these people, so I got updates on how the campaign went. Rogue had exactly 2 lines of backstory. She was a Medusa. Her being a Medusa was why she was banished from her tribe. Obviously, the next session, they run into the literal princess of said tribe, the woman who banished her, and she goes, "Oh sister, it's so wonderful to see you here." So I guess wasn't kidding about the whole not reading backstories thing. Barbarian was, according to the module, supposed to receive some sort of epic treasure as part of his epic path. Dan decided it was better than Crush got the item in addition to every other epic treasure he handed out. Oh gee willikers, give everything to Crush, might as well. The whole campaign just goes to Crush. Everybody else just gets to be an audience member doing nothing in the background. Thanks, Dan. Seriously, what's wrong with Dan? Dan decided the module needed to be altered and improved. This allowed him to truly shine, as he failed to actually come up with a meaningful plot outside of a super cool villain I think he yoinked off Persona 3. And it spiraled into a pointless, long dungeon crawl to stall for time. It got so bad that they arrived at session and Dan was so poorly prepared that he sat them down on a blank map, was slowly dropping tiles as we went, randomly initiating combat to buy time. At this point I had heard enough. This made Rogue angry, and Rogue was never angry. She was like the sweetest person ever. It got so bad that when I hinted I might be ready to go for the first time, run my own campaign, she agreed and recruited everyone else to join, except Druid, who by that point I refused to DM for. And I decided to run my own campaign. The story does sort of have a happy-ish ending, but it's bittersweet. Druid grew creepier and cheatier over time and eventually was removed from all games. With Rogue's encouragement, I started a campaign which I ran for almost 2 years. It included Barbarian, Crush, Rogue, Ranger, Centaur, and for a while also included Bard, Rogue's IRL BFF. It contained a lot of amazing roleplay, including a romance between Crush and Barbarian, in character that just friends IRL. So much so that Crush and Barbarian had art commission of their characters in it, which I like to think I had at least some role of facilitating. Barbarian and Centaur played twin sons of Asmodeus, one goofy anime type and the other a super serious assassin. So the other anime type. It was pretty awesome. Barbarian was our usual DM. Due to scheduling issues, he stopped playing with us about 2 years back. He and Crush still play together though. Rogue and Ranger had pretty cool plot going where it revealed a twist that they were sisters. One a Yuan-Ti assassin patroned by the goddess of redemption and forced to do good deeds against her will. The other a Gorgon because their dad sacrificed her to a dead snake god who was whispering to her in her dreams. Centaur took up DMing after Barbarian stopped, along with more members of the group, including Rogue and Ranger. I no longer DM, work stuff leaves no time, but 3 of us still play together every week. Rogue, or Rogue's player rather, died suddenly and tragically about 1.5 years ago. Oh, I'm sorry. She was the heart of every group she was in, and we miss her so much. She was a wonderful player and a wonderful person, and a great loss to everyone who ever knew her. Our group kept going, and included players we met through the groups, though not all are mentioned in the story. So even if it was an absolutely terrible campaign, I am grateful for it, pushed me to DM my own, and for bringing Centaur and Ranger into my life. Love you guys, and I'm glad I got to play in it. And if you all lasted that long, well, thank you for reading my ancient ramblings. I just wanted to tell that old story. If there was ever a reason to start DMing, it's bad DMs doing some stupid ass stuff that makes you so irate to the point where you just want to fume, and then you decided, you know what, screw it, I'm starting my own thing. That's how my game started. And it was the best thing ever. Never looked back. Honestly, it was the best thing we could have done together. I'm sorry for the loss of Rogue, but I'm hoping you're still having fun and having a good time. And you know what? This is a lesson in a way. Bad DMs can encourage players to become their own DMs and start their own thing. Sometimes what you need is not just the desire to do it. Sometimes you need a push, like a really terrible DM, to just make your own thing and start it and do something right, or do something that fits your style and everything. So heartwarming. Obviously, not everybody needs to DM out there or learn how to DM, but if you had ever push, a bad DM will probably be a really good push for that, because you think to yourself, I could do so much better than this idiot is doing, and then you go do it and you have fun and you make friends and you have a wonderful time. Bingo bango, everybody wins except the stinky DM. They lose, but you know what, it's fine, they're stinky anyway. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.